All right, everybody. Friday evening, Black and Gold Breakdown, May 3rd. Good to see you. Appreciate you tuning in wherever you're tuning in, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, do all that fun YouTube stuff. Subscribe, like the video, leave a comment if you can. But it's good to see you. Yeah, if you see the thumbnail, yesterday's plan was to talk about the quarterbacks with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. That was the original plan. And then the Steelers didn't pick up Najee Harris's fifth-year option. And so that became the talking point. So today we're going to talk about the quarterbacks as well as some potential defensive back moves. And then there was a few receivers that came off the board in terms of free agents today. Touch on that a little bit as well. Appreciate you guys, as always, for being here. S Concepts, dope thumbnail. Oh yeah, dude, appreciate it. Yeah, I was, like I said it on the stream yesterday. I was really excited to use it, and then the Najee stuff happened, and so I didn't put any effort into making a Najee thumbnail. I just threw up a picture with a little caption and the logo. But yeah, I thought the thumbnail looked dope. Hi Marja, good to see you. So, in terms of the quarterbacks, I did my top 36 quarterbacks in the NFL list, which you can go read now over on Touchdown Wire for USA Today. And in it, I had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson back to back. I think I had Russ at 23, Fields at 22 is where I have them. Because I do think that Fields gives you a little bit more, obviously, with the athleticism. But in terms of, from a pure passing standpoint, Russ has more there right now than Fields does. Not to say that Fields can't develop that. Obviously, he can. But as of right now, I think that Wilson gives you more as a passer. Fields gives you more overall as like an athlete, a chance to, break off a big run. I don't think that that's too crazy to say. But they're working out and everything at the facility in OTA. Some photos dropped today from the Steelers. The guys back at work, and there was a nice shot of Kyle Allen, Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson all throwing together. So it's exciting, man. We've got less than 3 months until camp. And for me, the days just feel like they're getting faster and faster. Like I don't feel like this is very far away. Like I'm pretty excited. I'm excited to be in Latrobe to see these guys up close and personal, as well as the several other new faces and old faces alike. It's always good seeing TJ Watt and all the stars, Minka Fitzpatrick. I tell you what, last year at the Combine, I was at Darnell Washington's podium watching his press conference, and he was a ginormous man then, but standing 3 feet from him and just being like, "Oh my God, you are a behemoth." It always blows me away just how big these homies are. But we'll talk about the quarterback. So let's start with some numbers. I pulled up some numbers that just kind of give you a general idea of what each guy's looked like over the past year or two. With Russ last year, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. It's a really good ratio. 18th in the NFL in EPA per play. 4th in the NFL in passing yards on passes with at least 25 air yards. That's one that we're going to come back to. 3rd in the NFL in completion percentage over expected for Russell Wilson. So certainly 2023 was much better than 2022 with, the debacle with Nate Hackett, who doesn't even last the entire season as head coach. They go to Sean Payton. Still wasn't a perfect pairing there with Wilson and Payton, but it was certainly an upgrade, and Wilson showed development in the system. And with a competent play caller, he had a respectable season. But being 4th in the NFL in passing yards on passes with at least 25 air yards, that's not a Sean Payton offense. That's not what the Sean Payton offense does. That's Russ improvising and extending plays and letting things develop downfield and letting it rip. Sean Payton offense isn't going to dial up too many deep looks. So that is one aspect that I'm excited to see with Russ. because he still has it, clearly. Like, him chucking it, it's still a pretty safe idea. And it worked a lot last year for the Broncos. And so, again, we're going to see a ton of play action, especially when they get into second and short, third and short. And we're going to see Russ is going to be allowed to chuck it. And we're going to see big plays in the passing game that we haven't seen over the past few years because they haven't had the quarterback to do it. So I know that a lot of people were a little bit worried about, okay, well, Russ didn't really target the middle of the field a lot last year or wasn't great at targeting the middle of the field last year. Hey, I really do think that this can work. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be elite. I think those days are definitely behind him. But I think that an offense that doesn't ask him to be the end-all, be-all, but he's not quite a passenger either. They need him to steer the wheel every once in a while, and they're going to let him have opportunities to launch it downfield to Pickens. They're going to have Roman Wilson do exactly what he did at Michigan and come on those crossers off play action and be basically he's not as good as Amon-Ra St. Brown, but that's what Amon-Ra St. Brown does for the Lions. Eats in the intermediate. That's what Cooper Kupp did a lot for the Rams, and now Puka Nacua is doing it as well. Just eating in the intermediate parts of the field. If you have a good run game and you can take advantage of those in-breakers, that's what Roman Wilson's going to do this year. This can work. And again, the numbers, the touchdown to interception ratio make him look like much better than what he really was. It's not to say he was bad or anything like that, but third in the NFL in completion percentage over expected. That he was only behind Brock Purdy and Josh Allen for that. So there's still something there with Russ. And I think that a system like this, similar to his earlier days in Seattle, I think something that he's going to be comfortable in, I think that this can work. In terms of Justin Fields, that's a whole other element that can work as well, but for different reasons. 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year for Fields. 45 total touchdowns over the past 2 years. He's got 33 passing touchdowns and 12 on the ground. And over the last 2 years, 1,800 rushing yards. So while he needs to get better at processing, he needs to get better at decision-making, sure. But that extra element of being able to run the ball like he can, like Arthur Smith was trying to do that. I mean, look at the quarterbacks that he had. He had Marcus Mariota, who is a poorer man's Justin Fields. Desmond Ridder can move around a little bit. Taylor Heineke can move a little bit. He's getting a perfect quarterback for what he wants to do. And that's have a dual threat guy that can move around. So while he needs to get better in the passing element of things, for sure, having that add an element of being able to just run past anybody, I think even if he's not the starter week 1, which I don't think he's going to be, for the early portion of the season, there's at least going to be a Justin Fields package where he gets a certain amount of plays a game to try to, keep defenses on their toes. They're not going to know, okay, is he going to throw it here? Is he going to run it here? What are they going to do? So I think working him into the offense, just makes too much sense to not do. Don't worry. Like I said yesterday, definitely going to get to all your comments and everything like that. Just making sure I get, my entire piece out, and then we'll go through it and kind of begin the conversational part of this. So don't worry. I'm not ignoring you. So the Steelers have 2 capable guys who will both, I think, in my opinion, at least work in this system for separate reasons. For Russ, the offense on play action, second down and shorts, third and shorts, they're going to really lean on play action passing and let him, throw those intermediate in-breakers. They're going to let him chuck it deep to George Pickens on some 50-50 balls. And hell, they might not even be 50-50 balls at times. If Pickens is just open, then great. If whomever they get to put on the outside is open, then great. You're going to have Roman Wilson across the field who's open. They're going to have their looks. This is going to be a much more dynamic offense than it was last year. And again, I'm not expecting, a top 5 offense, but a top 15, I think that's doable. Top 15 to 20. And again, it tells you just how bad the offense has been over the past few seasons when we're just talking about, can they just get top 20? That's not even in the top half of the league. Can they just get like the 17th best offense? That would be neat. It's like last year in total offense, they're like 28th or 27th. If they can get like the 17th best offense, oh, that's a great first year for Arthur Smith. And both of these guys can do it for different reasons. With Fields, it's more of the running aspect of it, where, if you do the read option stuff, you do the RPO stuff, I mean, that's something that Fields can really thrive in, especially with an improved offensive line, real weapons that they'll have. I know that they brought in DJ Moore for him last year. And by the way, played well with DJ Moore. He had consecutive games where he threw 4 touchdown passes. That game against Washington on Thursday night where they just torched them. Like, there was clearly glimpses there with Justin Fields that, oh, okay, this is the guy that we took in the first round, and he's showing us why we did. Now, Fields got hurt a little bit last year, so that put a little bit of a damper on his season, but 1,800 rushing yards over the past 2 seasons, 12 rushing touchdowns, 45 total touchdowns. Like, this dude's a freak. Might be the fastest guy on the team in general at quarterback. Like, both of these things can work, but for different reasons. And again, I think that we'll see Russell Wilson start off the year as the starting quarterback. That doesn't necessarily mean I'd be surprised if Fields starts week 1. Maybe I would be. I think that, they signed Russell Wilson for a reason, to be, at least the immediate starter. And I think that eventually we'll see an extension for Fields. I hope that that's a deal that gets done, by the way. If we see like a 2-year extension for Justin Fields, I will be over the moon. So that's a guy that I want them to keep in-house to see what they can do. But I'm excited to see how this offense works, man. I think it's going to be really good. Or I shouldn't say really good in comparison to what it has been. Again, if it's the 15th, 16th best offense in the world, give Arthur Smith some sort of award for completely just turning this thing around in year 1. And that gives them something to build off of. Say, okay, hey, we were 17th best offense last year. Let's try to get to the 14th, the 13th, and just keep working that way up. And then, of course, that'll depend on who else they get at receiver. We'll touch on that a little bit later. A lot of comments coming in this, so we'll get to this. Bills just stole a top 3 receiver. I mean, hey, I'll hope for the best for Chase Claypool. I will. Do you attribute Fields' crazy fumble numbers to him trying to do too much in Chicago or legit? I don't. He runs a lot more than the average quarterback, so naturally he's going to have more fumbles than the average quarterback. So I'm not. I attribute it. I mean, some of it could be him, running around, extending plays behind the line of scrimmage to set up something downfield. But most of it is like he runs a lot more than the average quarterback, so naturally there's going to be more fumbles. Would you like him to clean that up a little bit? Sure, but I'm not worried about it. I think a lot of it is, I don't think it's like a huge ball security issue. I think it's just, math. I think the more you do something, the more likely you are for another thing to happen. And in the NFL, if you're not a quarterback that runs a ton, you're not going to fumble nearly as much as a guy who runs more. So I'm not too worried about the ball security stuff. Russ beat Mahomes too, even though Mahomes doesn't play defense. Yeah, I don't worry about, the quarterback versus quarterback record stuff. It's, like you said, Russ isn't out there defending Mahomes. And I've said this before too about the Chiefs. Like, I think by the time like week 9 hits, they're just kind of over it and waiting for the playoffs to get here because they know they're going to be there. For a game like that, it was much more important to Denver than it was Kansas City. I'm not trying to take away anything that the Broncos did, but my buddy Matt Verderam, who writes for Sports Illustrated, does a Monday morning quarterback podcast. I think he does it every Wednesday. He kind of just made that analogy, like they want to win, but they're not gonna they just want to get to the playoffs at that point. So I think that game was much more important for Denver than it was Kansas City. Again, not to say that they weren't trying, but it definitely meant more to the Broncos than it did the Chiefs. Steelers freak. Fields must get better at reading defensive schemes and being an accurate pocket passer. He needs real pass plays this year to show improvement. The Steelers don't need a Jackson quarterback. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, Fields' offense wasn't good either. Like, Luke Getsy, I've said this before. We talk about Matt Canada and how bad he was. Luke Getsy was probably the second worst offensive coordinator in the NFL, and somehow has a job again with the Raiders. So I think that in a real offense with stability, a franchise with stability, the Bears have been the complete opposite of a stable franchise for the past who knows how long. You go to a place with a stable head coach and Mike Tomlin, just a stable place with an offense that makes sense. I think that Fields can do nice things here. Casey scored 22 points on offense and allowed 17 points. Steelers averaged 18 points on offense and allowed 17 points per game too. They just need to have average offensive. Yeah, that's the thing. They don't need, an offense that's going to, score 30 points. They don't need to be the 07 Patriots. They just need a league average offense. If the defense lives up to its potential and they have a league average offense in terms of points, they're chilling. That's all they need. And points last year as a whole were down for whatever reason. But the Chiefs didn't score a ton of points. A lot of that could be maybe attributed to, the Bengals, who were usually in that conversation. They lost Burrow, and Burrow was hurt a large portion of the year. The Chiefs, who usually put up points, led the NFL in drops by a comfortable margin, didn't have a receiver worth a piss on the roster besides Rashee Rice. The points were just down as a whole last year. Top 15 is night and day from the last 2 years. Absolutely it is. Yeah. It would be great to see. Casey was number 2 overall in defense and number 9 overall in offense. Sounds about right. Yeah, their defense is terrific. So, but I think that the Steelers offense is going to be something to be excited about because it can't be worse. Can't be worse than what it was. And people talk about how far can the Steelers go. It was an amazing draft class, but how far can they go? We're not going to really know until, I think legitimately probably not going to know until like week 6. If the offense still doesn't look great, if it looks sluggish, if Russell Wilson isn't the answer, and they got to turn the wheel over to Justin Fields, it might not happen this year. But again, that's why I keep saying, like, hey, tell me how good the quarterback is, and I'll tell you how far that they can go. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, friends. Had a little bit of a glitch, so my apologies. Yeah, I definitely glitched. My apologies for that. Hopefully some of you are still in here. So that's annoying. That was very annoying. So hopefully some of you are still in here. Don't know what really happened there. Yeah. Sometimes that just happens. It's pretty annoying. I don't know what the issue was there, but it happens sometimes. In terms of what I was saying, tell me how good the quarterback is, and I'll tell you how far they can go. I know that I've said that for the last week or so of doing this, but it still rings true. I think that if Russ plays well enough where they're sitting pretty and through like 7 weeks they can be hovering around, 20 points a game, then okay. And again, this is with the built-in factor of, okay, how good's the defense doing? Then we'll have the conversation of, okay, they can, make a little bit of a run. But, if there's a midseason quarterback switch, doesn't necessarily mean that their season's done, but that's going to put a real damper on things. And again, I'm all for seeing Justin Fields. I hope that we do see him at some point this year. But again, tell me how good the quarterbacks are, and I'll tell you how far that they can go. JB is right. The quarterback uncertainty is why the Steelers moves this year haven't moved the Steelers Super Bowl odds. Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people or Steelers fans are a little bit like, feel they say, oh, disrespecting the Steelers. No, it's not that. It's we don't know what Russell Wilson's going to look like. We don't know what Justin Fields is going to look like. And with the most important position in sports and a conference that's stacked all over the place with Burrow and Jackson and Mahomes and Herbert and Lawrence and Stroud and a healthy Anthony Richardson, and we'll see with Will Levis, Josh Allen, obviously. The Dolphins are still going to be high-powered in the regular season. We'll see what they can do in the playoffs if they get there. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Like, dude, there are very few teams in the AFC that you look at and say, well, their quarterback's not very good. Even the ones that I'm not high on, like I don't think Tua is all that great, but even then, the offense has worked the last 2 years with him. I don't think the Patriots are going to be in the playoff mix, but I think Drake May is going to end up being pretty good. Like, there's very few teams in the AFC that I look at and say, yeah, you're not going to be good. Like, just outright as, yeah, you're going to be bad. I think the Broncos are going to stink. I think the Raiders are going to stink. But outside of that, man, like, it's a toss-up for the other 14 teams. Oh, the Patriots won't be great. I don't think that they'll be great. Like I said, I think May will eventually be good, but I mean, they still got a long ways to go. So I think there's probably 13 teams that you can make the case for, yeah, they could be in the playoff mix in the AFC. Trevor Lawrence has better hair than quarterback play. I'm going to push back on the Trevor Lawrence hate. I've done this a lot this offseason. He had the Jaguars as the number 1 seed in the AFC at one point in the year. And then he got hurt against Cincinnati with a highly sprained ankle and had a myriad of other stuff going on. I think he had something with a calf. I think he had a little bit of a shoulder. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on with Trevor Lawrence where he was asked to do so much while he was beaten to hell. He threw 14 interceptions last year. 7 of them came in the final 4 games. 3 of them came against the Browns. Like, Trevor Lawrence is getting a lot of disrespect this offseason. I'm a big Trevor Lawrence guy. I think that he's going to have a nice bounce back year. Yeah, people are too low on Trevor Lawrence. I think that the issue with the Jaguars stems more from, Trent Baalke and how they've built around Trevor Lawrence than Trevor Lawrence himself. I would kill to have Trevor Lawrence in Pittsburgh. If Trevor Lawrence was a Steeler, they're a Super Bowl contender this year. Absolutely, without a doubt in my mind. Without a doubt in my mind. Oh, I'm trying to fix my hat. I'm very particular about my hats being even on my head. Very OCD about that type of stuff. Same way I feel like I'm always fixing that helmet. Maybe I have a ghost. Just pushing shit. 007. That's a pretty rad name. Are the Jets done with Aaron Rodgers? No, they're too invested in that. We're going to see how he does this year. I'm looking forward to seeing Aaron Rodgers. We were robbed of seeing that last year. We can say what we want about Aaron Rodgers as a dude and his conspiracy theories and his ayahuasca night trips or whatever the hell he does. Like, I personally don't care anymore to pay attention to it. I'm just going to try to pay attention to what he does on the football field. I still think that he has, some of that Aaron Rodgers in him. They've done a really good job of adding pieces this year, both on the offensive line, getting him another weapon in Malachi Corley. They also signed Mike Williams. So I think the Jets, with that defense, as long as Rodgers is 75% of MVP Aaron Rodgers is still a damn good quarterback. So I think that they'll be a playoff team this year. I'll predict that. Speaking of predictions, I've highlighted it over the past few days, but if you're new to the channel, by the way, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Black and Gold Breakdown every Monday through Friday at 7:30, where we talk all things Steelers. when the schedule release happens, after it's like completely out and Playoff Predictor updates their website where you can predict every game, I'm going to do that. I do it every year, the night of the schedule release and then the week before the regular season. So once that's done, we'll do a little bit of an episode on it here for the Steelers. And then I'm going to do an episode on it for the Pump Fake, my national NFL podcast. So subscribe to the channel. Please and thank you. Tell your friends about it. Leave a nice little comment as well. A healthy Rodgers is still dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm ready to see what he looks like but they're just getting them new unis, kind of the throwback to the 90s look. I love it. Absolutely love it. 4 offensive snaps. I wanted to see Rodgers with the Jets weapons and defense so bad. Me too. I remember after he got hurt, apparently it was either Garrett Wilson or Sauce Gardner went up to him after the game. And it was like a scene from a movie. He just looked up from him. He's like, "Sorry, kid." Just thinking about that, I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. We play KC and Buffalo, right? They play the Chiefs. I don't think they played the Bills this year. But yeah, they host the Chiefs. And the last time they hosted the Chiefs, Mahomes threw 6 touchdowns. Ben had a day that year. 450 and 3 touchdowns that game. That's one of those games where the Steelers lost, but I would go back and rewatch it because it was so fun. They were down 21-0 after the first quarter, and then they had it tied at 21 going into halftime. But the defense sucked. Oh, the defense is so bad that year. That was the year before Minkah Fitzpatrick, so the defense is still putrid. Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Great podcast. Thanks. I hit the oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. Tune in. Hey, like I said, for the rest of the offseason, Monday through Friday, every night at 7:30, Black and Gold Breakdown. We'll see what we'll do in the regular season just because I'll have, a lot more writing responsibilities and things of that nature where it might be hard to do every day. So we'll figure that out when the time comes. But for the rest of the offseason, Monday through Friday at 7:30. It's on YouTube. Ben went off. Yeah. He threw 60 passes that day. He had a rushing touchdown too. So he had 4 total touchdowns that game. Yeah, that might be not the last great Ben game. I think the last great Ben game was, did they play the Chargers before or after the Vikings in his last year? Because both of those games were awesome. And they lost both of them, of course, but Ben had 2 awesome games in his last year against the Chargers and the Vikings, where they almost came all the way back on Thursday night against the Vikings and almost won. That's another game I would I would only watch the second half of it, but I would go back and rewatch that just because Ben channeled his inner Ben and it was awesome. But okay, so potential cornerback moves. That was the other part of this show. People have asked about hey, would they go out and get a Stephon Gilmore? I think that would be a fine idea. I don't think Xavier Howard would be a good idea because he's bad. There's a reason that the Dolphins were so quick to just get rid of him. It's because he was putrid last year. So I don't think that Xavier Howard would be a great signing. I think Gilmore was still fine. So I'm cool if that's, a 1-year Band-Aid type signing. But as I've said before, I think that, Joey Porter and Dante Jackson on the outside, you can do worse than Dante Jackson. If they wanted to just bring in a nickel guy, a proven nickel guy, maybe it's Cam Sutton. And if it is Cam Sutton, again, that's a situation. I touched on it a little bit yesterday saying that I don't know. No one knows the extent of what happened. If he did the things that he's being accused of, then, absolutely that's, not something that you want to, advertise. I don't know what the right word is, but his charges went down to a misdemeanor. I think that he has to participate in a anger management program or something of that nature. Again, I don't know the full details on it. And while whatever he did, definitely don't support that whatsoever. I do support, somebody if they're genuinely remorseful and show that they want to change. I think that second chances are allowed to be had. And, asking people around the beat and seeing people talk around the beat who, when Cam Sutton was there, Alan Saunders from Steelers Now was on the Locked On Steelers pod with Chris Carter. And he said, if you would have told me that somebody from, former Steeler got in trouble for, a domestic violence incident, I probably could have named 50 dudes before I named Cam Sutton. So, yeah, I'd like to think that that's not who he is, and it was just a horrible mistake. And if he is, genuinely remorseful about whatever happened, and the Steelers would feel comfortable in bringing him back, then that's something that, the play is still good. He wasn't a fit with the Lions, but we saw how good he was when he played in the nickel with Pittsburgh. So we'll see. If that ends up being the move, then okay. Beanie Bishop, they signed as an undrafted free agent from West Virginia. I think that that's a guy who, if they don't make a move, will legitimately be their week 1 starter at nickel, which would be a little bit nerve-wracking, but was a consensus All-American at West Virginia, led the nation in passes broken up, had 4 picks. You could certainly do worse. K'Wan Williams is still on the market, who's a nickel guy, played with the Broncos last year. He's 33, though, so a little bit older, would definitely only be like a 1-year stopgap type of guy, or somebody that they would start the year with him as the starter and then eventually work in Bishop as the starter, if I had to guess. But, in terms of, like I said, a lot of people are like, oh, Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard's not good anymore. If Xavier Howard was like a surprise release because like he played well last year, then yeah, absolutely, I'd be all in to go get Xavier Howard, but he's just not good anymore. So Dante Jackson right now is probably a better option than Xavier Howard would be. So if they would want to get a Stephon Gilmore, like I said, that's fine. If they bring in a Cam Sutton for the nickel spot, okay. I think Beanie Bishop's a realistic option to start week 1. We'll see how he looks in camp in the preseason. K'Wan Williams. Who else is really even out there right now? Someone says Rock Ya-Sin available. I think he signed somewhere. I can just pull up the list of remaining free agents at corner. We'll do that real quick. So, free agent cornerbacks. I probably should have had that window open already, but, it's okay. I also hate Spotrack's new website design too, by the way. Their new layout, I hate it. Not a fan. What the hell, Spotrack? What are we doing? Apparently I have to type that in. Okay, let's get this pulled up real quick. Sorry for taking a few minutes there. Okay, so available. Oh my goodness, it's all positions. I hate this website so much. Okay, so J.C. Jackson's the guy that's available. I don't know how he would fit in this defense. He didn't do great when he was with the Chargers, rejoined the Patriots last year, but then I think he has like some sort of like criminal thing right now, I think related to gun charges or something. Adoree Jackson's still available. That's a name that you can pay attention to. Of course, there's a possibility that they bring back Patrick Peterson. I hope that's not what they do. Really hope that's not what they do. This would be a fun name. I don't know if he would want to come back. It's a former Steeler, but the way that it ended the first time, I don't know if that bridge is burned, but again, maybe possible. Steven Nelson. I liked Steven Nelson. He was really cool. Actually came on my podcast 3 years ago. Might have been 4 years ago. Excuse me. I think it was during COVID, so it would have been during the 2020 season. One of the cooler dudes I've ever had on my show, or at least one of the cooler players. I really enjoyed Steven Nelson. Really good number 2 guy. Like, I think that Steven Nelson was pretty underrated, and unfortunately they cut him as a cap casualty type situation, but I really liked Steven Nelson, and if that's still a possibility of him being able to be brought back into the fold, I would like that. I think I saw someone say Keon Crossan. Let me look. I'm pretty sure I wasn't just seeing things there. Somebody named Keon Crossan. Maybe I am just seeing things. Yeah, I'm saying Steven Nelson hates Tom. Yeah, and again, yeah, said Mike Tomlin lied to his face. And look, if that is, if that's a bridge that's completely burned, then okay. But, if he doesn't get signed and appears to be, just kind of sitting at home and the Steelers call it, I wonder if, those bridges could be mended. So we'll see. Corners are terrible last year, including Porter's tackling. I'll say this about Joey Porter. Started off bad as a tackler, isn't a great tackler now, but it got better as time went on. So, and by the way, he recognized that he wasn't great at tackling, and I can't remember who asked him about it, but he addressed it at some point, saying that he wanted to get better at tackling. So he's willing. It's definitely not a matter of not trying. It was a problem in camp and preseason. It got better as time went on. Telling you of Trice, Barnes, Watts, Rush, one of those guys are talented, too talented not to hit. We'll see. I like Darius Rush coming out of school. I was surprised that the Colts cut him after they drafted him like the 4th or 5th round. He got picked up by the Chiefs, spent some time in their practice squad, and then Pittsburgh picked him up last year, which I was pretty ecstatic about because I really liked him. So, yeah, I like Darius Rush. I don't think Watts is going to be a cornerback. I think they're going to convert him to safety. He's just too big. He's not like great in man coverage or anything. He's a good tool and he's athletic, but I don't think he's a cornerback at this level. Just personally. Yeah, he got better at tackling. Yeah, he did get better at tackling. It was nice to see Joey Porter get better at that. It was awkward early on. And again, he's, not exactly a stacked dude. So again, I don't need Joey Porter to be great at tackling, by the way. I need him to lock dudes down, which he does. But let the bigger dudes take care of that other stuff. 007, what do you think about Najee not getting the 5th-year option? Talked about it some yesterday. You can watch that show in full on the channel. But just a quick synopsis of my thoughts. I'm surprised it didn't get done. I think that Najee is a good back. I don't think it's the end of the world. That's basically my overall synopsis on it. If they do bring in a veteran, I just hope it's not Patrick Peterson being brought back in. That would be such an underwhelming move. I don't have anything against Patrick Peterson, man, but it would just be, we know what he is. We saw what he was last year. He's slow. Even if you put him in the slot, get somebody else. You got Beanie Bishop there already. I'd rather see what you have in a young guy and go through the trials and errors of that than just put a 34-year-old Band-Aid on it I'd rather see the dude get better on the job. Let him learn. He's got a great system around him, great group of guys around him. Just let Beanie Bishop, especially if he shows out in camp in preseason, just let him start. Let's not play this game. By early on, you mean week 10. I guess Joey Porter Jr. still a sus tackler until proven out. Again, I don't care if he's not a good tackler. He's legitimately already one of the top 5 corners in football. Like, look at all of his numbers last year after he became a starter, locked dudes down. Were equally as impressive numbers as Sauce Gardner was as a rookie. I don't know why he doesn't get the attention that Sauce Gardner got, but I don't need Joey Porter to be Brian Dawkins laying dudes out. I need him to prevent guys from getting the ball. And he does that very well. Does it very, very well. Yeah, I don't need my corners to be thumpers. Pat P can't tackle at all. Patrick Peterson was cool last year when they converted him to safety because they literally had to. They didn't have anybody else because they were all hurt or suspended. But even then, that was like week 15 when they finally did that. Nothing against Patrick Peterson. Just don't think that that's the move I want to see. If they bring in somebody on the outside, I would prefer it to be someone like Stephon Gilmore. And then you could rotate in Dante Jackson. The biggest question's at nickel, obviously. And we're gonna see how long it remains a question. I think that the Cam Sutton thing is definitely possible. But if they just roll into camp with, okay, Darius Rush, Corey Trice, Beanie Bishop, we're going to let y'all compete for that spot. See how well you do. Hope we trade Naj for a corner or a wide receiver vet. Naj in a second for Devontae Adams. I don't know if they're going to move Najee Harris. That's something that it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if he was like a trade deadline type of deal, but I think they're going to roll throughout the season with him. In terms of the Devontae Adams stuff, that's a name that's like starting to get a little bit more traction in terms of like speculation. Nothing's been confirmed in terms of like Pittsburgh reaching out about him, but I think that just by process of elimination, it makes sense that they would be one of the 6 teams they reached out to. I would like Devontae Adams. I'd be pretty hype about it. People would be a little bit off put by trading a second for a 32-year-old receiver, which I understand. But if you expect the Raiders to eat, a good chunk of that salary, they're going to garner a bigger draft pick in return for it. So we'll see. I swear I'm the only person in the fan base comfortable with the cornerback wide receiver rooms. They need to get better in both. Every team in the NFL is going to have a hole on the roster, But with the Steelers, like, they don't have a legitimate X receiver on the roster right now. So that's something that they do need to address pretty badly. I'm not going to be comfortable at all if the number 2 receiver on the outside is Van Jefferson. No offense to Van Jefferson, but that's no defensive coordinator is laying awake at night thinking, how in God's name am I going to stop Van Jefferson? Or how am I going to stop Quez Watkins? Or how am I going to stop Calvin Austin? Need to get somebody else. And I would bet pretty solid money that they're pretty confident that a deal's going to get done. And again, we saw DJ Chark and Odell Beckham both signed elsewhere today. Thank the Lord. I didn't want either of them to be Steelers. No disrespect to DJ Chark. That's just not a guy who moves the needle. And Odell Beckham, I really didn't want to see him come to Pittsburgh, so I'm glad that he went elsewhere. So I'm cool with whatever they decide to do in terms of trading for a receiver. I think it's going to be one of these 4 names. I think it'll either be one of the 2 49ers receivers, although that looks a little bit more dwindling by the day. Cortland Sutton, whatever happens there, and DK Metcalf. I think it's going to be one of those 4. And judging by the fact that the whole DK situation hasn't been completely shut down or shot down or anything like that, it could be something where they just have to wait till June 1st and then it gets done to save the Seahawks some money. So there's a pretty decent chance that DK Metcalf could be a Steeler. Then again, Ben Albright reported that the Steelers reached out to the Seahawks. The Seahawks didn't explicitly say no. So that could just be a situation where they're waiting until June 1st to do it. So we'll see. I know a few more comments came in here. Trading Najee makes no sense, just makes a massive hole at running back. Yeah, I could agree with that. Phantom just wants to trade everybody. Trade Russ and Notch to the Raiders for Adams. I don't think that that's a tremendous plan. Again, I think that they're going to go into the season with Russ as the starter. And if you're the Raiders at that point, I think the Raiders they were planning on taking Penix. I think that was their plan. And then the Falcons did the dumbest thing possible in the draft and took him at 8. And the Raiders crap. Well, I guess we'll take Brock Bowers. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback next year. I think that they're going to be a team that's going to be in on the Dak Prescott sweepstakes. So that's something to watch for, rather than just keep kicking this can of okay, we'll try another rookie. I think that they want to be a team that finally gets a proven vet, and there's not going to be too many chances to get a good proven veteran quarterback on the free agent market. So I think that they could be a team that enters the Dak Prescott sweepstakes. Does Josiah Scott have any chance of working out for slot cornerback? I don't even know who Josiah Scott is. See, Josiah Scott. He played at Penn State. Name sounds familiar. He's on the roster. Yeah. He played for the Eagles for a little bit. From Hamilton, Ohio. Has played in 35 games over his 4-year NFL career. Jacksonville in 2020, Philadelphia. Yeah, I have no recollection of seeing much of Josiah Scott on the field last year. I think that he's mostly there as a camp body. Don't think that there's much there. Both Chark and OBJ are wide receiver 3s. We're good. Yeah, I mean, Chark's going to have nice numbers this year playing with he went to the Chargers, so Justin Herbert will get him the ball. Their receiver room's weird. I like Ladd McConkey. I think that was a fine pick. But then it's Josh Palmer, DJ Chark, Quentin Johnson, who they took in the first round last year, and he was bad. Yeah, they got a weird receiver room. I'm a big Justin Herbert guy, and I'm done drinking the Chargers Kool-Aid because I've just been let down too many times. But now that I say that, this is probably going to be the year that they actually do well. And pass rush can mask corner. Yeah, somewhat. You know, we saw last year that that wasn't necessarily the case when Levi Wallace was consistently getting beaten over the top. So, to a degree, yes, that's true. Russ is going to be benched by week 6. Once we get the NFL schedule release, I'm going to pinpoint what I think will happen. If a trade happens, I think it will happen after the June 1st deadline to avoid the dead cap hit. Yeah, I believe so too. So we're going to really just be speculating for the next month. And then once June 1st hits, it'll probably be before like June 1st when we start getting, the rumors and stuff heating up again. So like May 29th, there's going to be some murmurs, but like, oh, hey, Steelers, they want to get it. They're still in on a receiver. It could be DK Metcalf. So I think that will be, I think that if I had to guess right now, he's probably going to be the one. I was hoping that it would be Brandon Ayuk, like during the draft. But I don't know. That ship may have sailed. I think that the 49ers are going to try to really run it back one more time. And then next offseason, Deebo Samuel is going to get moved. If they're going to try to pay Brandon Ayuk, because they're not going to get rid of both of them. I think their plan is to move Deebo after this year and then pay Ayuk. Ayuk can still be a target. We have no clue what King Khan is cooking up. Yeah, I mean, like I kind of just laid my case as to why I don't think it'll be Ayuk. I think the 49ers are just going to stay committed to it, keep running this thing. Now try it again. Because again, I mean, they've gone to 2 Super Bowls in the past 4 or 5 years. They're consistently in the NFC Championship game. They have talent. That's undeniable. We know how good they are. So they're going to keep trying to make a run at this thing. And you're going to need Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel to do that. So I think they're going to try to run it back one more time. And then I think without a doubt, though, this is Deebo Samuel's last year in San Francisco. Do not many people know what the Smith system is? Are people confused that this is a modern spread system? Yeah, with the Arthur Smith system, there's going to be a lot of different things, a lot of different kinks to it. We're going to see a lot of 2 tight end stuff, which we didn't see a lot last year with the Steelers. Again, Pat Freiermuth is basically just going to be, a power slot receiver rather than a true tight end. Michael Pruitt and Darnell Washington are going to be more so the true tight ends. So, we'll see. No need for one of these 1-1A wide receiver duos for 25 to 30 million combined. I don't see why not. When you're only paying the quarterback room scraps, you get as much talent as you can. No such thing as too many weapons in today's NFL. If you can get Brandon Ayuk, you can get Brandon Ayuk. That's been my argument since day one. Like, if you can get Brandon Ayuk, there's no reason to not do it. He's very good, and it'll make your offense better. No reason to not do it. If your offense can't figure out a way to use a great receiver, then something's wrong with your offense. Like, as much as we can point to the fact that, okay, it's going to be, a 50, 55, 45 type thing where they run, they're not going to run the ball 40 times a game, guys. No NFL team is doing that. Not in 2024. Not in big games. You're going to have to throw the ball in January to win games. So in the regular season, when you face a shit team, yeah, you can run the ball 35 times when they can't stop you. Sure. Like, we're going to see the Ravens. I think they play the Giants this year. Yeah, they'll be able to run it down their throats all they want. Or whatever bad team that they play. Like, Derrick Henry's going to have a few games this year where we're like, oh my goodness, Baltimore, watch out. Can't stop them in the run game. And it's not going to matter in January because you're going to play Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Like, it's cool to do in the regular season when you beat up on bad teams and run it down their throat. They're not going to run the ball 40 times. No NFL team is doing that. It's just not happening in today's game. So, in January, you got to have guys who can throw the ball and catch the ball. You can win with, a lot of runs in the regular season against mediocre to bad teams, but when you're facing Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, if you don't have a dude under center, if you don't have a guy on the outside that you can consistently rely on, may as well just go home. That's today's NFL. You can't just go into a game thinking, all right, we'll just run it. You ain't going to win. Fans complain about how much money is spent on defense, but hate the idea of spending on offense, namely spending on a number one receiver. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, what has that done? And by the way, I'm not blaming the defense for it. Definitely not blaming the defense for it. Because it's not 100% the defense's fault that every time the Steelers have gotten into the playoffs as of late, that teams have put up a ton of points. The problem is that the offense can't do anything. The defense is always on the field. And so naturally, when the other team has the ball, for however long, and the offense consistently goes 3 and out, the defense is going to be gassed. And you're going to have situations where Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill eat up your slow defense on the back end. There's only so much that guys like TJ Watt can do in that situation. So you are what you invest in. If you don't invest in the offense, then you can't bitch and moan when the offense doesn't score. That's what it comes down to. My bad, I'm late today. Had training also. Jack Sperry made a video on your post. Did he? Forgive me for not knowing who Jack Sperry is. Let me look him up, because now I'm just curious. I feel like I've heard the name. Who's Jack Sperry? Jack Sperry. Got a good head of hair on him, Jack Sperry. Oh, yeah, Chat Sports. Okay, I know a few chat sports guys. Tom Downey does the Cowboys Chat Sports stuff. No, I love Chat Sports guys are cool with me. I actually had an interview with them coming out of college. Didn't end up panning out. That's okay. But yeah, my buddy Tom Downey does the Cowboy stuff for Chat Sports. So good stuff. What's this? Your fits be making me infuriated, gang. But I will say, I love your take on Kwan Williams. He would be dope. And it's like, yeah, I think that Kwan Williams would be a fine stopgap type of guy. Again, just a vet to have. It would be a very Steelers move too, to add a vet at the nickel spot. And if they eventually feel like they want to throw Beanie Bishop in there, cool. I see a lot of Jack Sperry love here. Yeah, I've seen a few of his the Chat Sports Steelers channel before, so I just didn't know the name, but he does good stuff. Shout out Jack Sperry. I don't think Justin Fields will be back there returning balls. No, like if anybody watched the podcast or listened to it or whatever, it was very much Jalen Warren joking around. They're not going to have Justin Fields returning kicks. Don't worry. Pickens is no guarantee. Y'all can assume he will be a number one, but he isn't a number one. Yeah, I agree. Pickens is a very good number two, in my opinion. That's not to crap on George Pickens. He's very good at what they need him to do, but I don't think that he's a predominant one. That's why people are hesitant to see before you pay someone else. Now, again, man, like I kind of already went on a little bit of a rant, but if you can get a really good receiver, there's no reason to not do it unless you already have. Unless you're like the Dolphins and already have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Oh, Dolphins are a pretty good example. The Dolphins didn't know what they really had in Tua. There was a very solid chance that 2022 would have been his last shot, and then they trade for a Tyreek Hill and get Jalen Waddle, and all of a sudden you get a good offense that works with Tua. And he puts up really good numbers. If you have a mediocre quarterback, the best thing that you can do to help out that quarterback and make him look better is to surround him with really good weapons. And again, I'm not a big Tua guy, but, that offense fits what he does well, which is a very timing-based offense. He's not a guy who's going to run around and extend the play. He's a very much three-step drop, get the ball out, fit the ball into windows and everything like that. That's what he does well. And the Dolphins offense with those fast as hell human beings fits that to a T. So if you can surround your quarterback who's not an elite quarterback with really good weapons, then you should do it any chance you get. He also said no way to Chris Olave. And again, I don't think that they're going to land Chris Olave. I was merely speculating on, I wonder if the Saints were a team that they reached out to about getting a receiver. I don't think they're going to get Chris Olave. I think the Saints would be stupid to trade him. I'm merely saying, I wonder if that was one of the teams that they reached out to. because if there's 6 of them, by process of elimination, it makes sense. George Pickens is an elite number 2, fringe 1, and after him, we don't have anything proven. Yeah, no, it's fair. I mean, I think Roman Wilson's going to do well, but that's to be determined. I just don't buy that Tom and Rooney are going all in on offense until they know what they have at quarterback. And maybe. But I think the same argument can be made of, excuse me, I don't know why. Every time I come on here, everything that I've eaten decides to, hey, we're going to give you little hiccups and little burps. It's pretty annoying. But look at what the Titans are doing. They have Will Levis on a rookie contract. They don't know what they have in Will Levis, but they're giving him every opportunity to prove them wrong, or prove them right, however they feel. They're saying, okay, we have DeAndre Hopkins. We'll get Calvin Ridley. We'll bring in Tony Pollard. We'll trade for L'Jarius Sneed to make sure that the defense is better on the back end to, not need you to score 1 billion points a game. They are doing all that they can to help Will Levis. The Steelers kind of are in a situation where they have a quarterback on a rookie contract where they can just build around these guys and say, hey, look, we're giving you every chance to show us that one of you can be the guy. One of you needs to kind of take the key here. I think it would make more sense to put as much talent on the team this year to, see who takes advantage of having that talent rather than being like, okay, offense isn't all that great, but we're going to expect, these middle of the pack to mediocre quarterbacks to all of a sudden become elite. I think that that's more of a risk than anything. Said, no way we land Olave or Chris Godwin. He said most likely to land Debo. And look, that's fine. I mean, that's Jack's thoughts. He's allowed to have his own thoughts. I don't think they're landing Chris Olave either. I think Chris Godwin could be a sneaky name, not necessarily only for the Steelers, but I think that's a name that if Tampa Bay is not doing great ahead of the trade deadline, that they can move on from. Debo, I don't know, man. Maybe. But I think that the 49ers are likely going to hold on to both their guys. I think they're just going to try to run it back. I mean, Art used a number 1 pick on a game manager quarterback, and it was a bad idea. No one's saying that Art Rooney's great. I'm not an Art Rooney guy whatsoever. I agree, but we never seen him with a good QB1. Who are you talking about in that situation? I already forget. We talking about Olave? Andrew Tate is the GOAT. That's certainly a hill to die on. We are most likely getting DK Metcalf. If I had to bet, it'll be DK Metcalf. Oh, George Pickens. Yeah. Again, George Pickens does a few things very well, but he's not a natural separator. He's not a guy who is, has a deep route tree, who can create, that natural separation like a Deontay Johnson could. He is very good in 50-50 balls downfield and taking short passes for big yards after the catch. Hope you're wrong. I really want Ayuk. I think the 49ers are going to hold on to Ayuk. I think if they were to have moved him, it would have been ahead of this draft or during this past draft to get something immediately in return for him. So I think that they're just really gearing up to try to win a Super Bowl this year where, okay, now they've got, I think they're saying we've got Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. We just added Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey. We're going to have a bunch of free agents next year that a few of them aren't going to be able to come back because we're not going to be able to pay everybody. We're just going to go balls to the wall this year and try to really make a run at this thing. I'd rather have DK, not going to lie. I would not. Brandon Ayuk is much better than DK Metcalf. If this doesn't work, you think we'll suck or we'll just... No, I don't think they're going to suck. No, I think worst case scenario, it's pretty similar to what they were last year. I think they'll hover around... At minimum, I think they'll be a 9-win team. I think that with this roster, having the upgrades on offense and an offensive coordinator, they got better on paper defensively. There's no reason in my line of thinking that they can't be at least what they were last year, which is a 10-win team. Isn't what Debo does for Shanahan's offense harder for them to replace? Yeah, I've said that too. And Eric Crocker from Locked On 49ers kind of made that point. I can't remember how long. It was probably like a week ago, week and a half ago or so. Like Ayuk's the better receiver, but the versatility in terms of, the stuff out of the backfield as well as receiver that Debo does, that's harder to find in a player than, a number one receiver would be. If they have a losing record, Mike T is gone. I'd be very surprised if they have a losing record. I just think that they're better. This team, at least on paper, obviously, is much better than any team over the past 2 years for the Steelers. Really over the past 3. So I'm pretty confident this isn't going to be, an 8-9 team. I would be very surprised if that happened. Okay, I see this argument constantly, the CMC to Debo role. Look at the 49ers numbers with Debo on the field compared to without Debo on the field. With Debo on the field, they led the NFL in EPA per play. Without him on the field, they were 14th. So yes, Christian McCaffrey is obviously great and is the best player on that offense, but he didn't take Debo Samuel's role. They complement each other very much. Like their offense got so much better when they added Christian McCaffrey because they already did a lot of things great. But adding Christian McCaffrey into that mix just made everybody that much better. So fire Tomlin after his first losing season. The stuff with the non-losing record thing is so overrated. I don't care about it. I really don't. Mike Tomlin's not getting fired, but I couldn't care less about the non-losing season stuff. Plenty of other coaches have had losing seasons that are like Kyle Shanahan's had losing seasons. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. Andy Reid's had losing seasons. He's won 3 Super Bowls. I don't care about non-losing seasons. I care about winning in the playoffs. So hopefully he can start doing that again. How much will Brock Purdy get paid? I'm intrigued by that. Definitely. I don't think that if the 49ers pay that man like top level quarterback money, they're making a mistake. They're making a mistake. If you want to pay him market value for him, let me see what quarterback contracts are right now. The top quarterback contracts around the league. And I'll give you a window. My guess would be somewhere like $37 million a year. So if we look at, I need to find annual average value. There we go. So right now, Burrow has the most annual average value at 55. I think Purdy, that's when we start getting to, like right now, Derek Carr's at 37.5. He deserves more than Derek Carr, and he knows that. Daniel Jones is getting 40. He deserves more than Daniel Jones, and he knows that. I think that's kind of your safe spot there is between 37 and 40 in terms of annual average value. And Brock's not an idiot. Jared Goff's making 33.5. Jared Goff's better than Brock Purdy. Baker Mayfield's making 33. And then there's a drop off where Geno Smith's making 25, and then after that it drops all the way down to 13. So there's 16 quarterbacks that are making 25 or more. I think he'll be between Geno Smith at 25 and Daniel Jones at 40. So he'll be somewhere in that window. I think it'll be more than 25. I think he'll make minimum 35 a year. That's just my guess. At some point, guys need to realize all this dumb money they're hitting themselves with. No, look, the market value for quarterbacks, that's just what it is, The cap goes up every year too, so that's just today's NFL. Quarterbacks are going to make a ton of money. Ton of money. Brock Purdy's not even good. I don't think Brock Purdy's great. I have him right in the middle. I think I ranked him 16th in the NFL. If he was in another situation, he wouldn't be nearly as good or put up nearly the numbers that he has in San Francisco. But that's just my thoughts on it. Brady never took that elite deal. It's not like Tom Brady wasn't getting money. He still got a respectable contract, but he was also making hella money outside of football. So he didn't need to worry about having, a $45 million a year contract because he was getting sponsorship deal after sponsorship deal. So he could afford to be a guy that takes a little bit of a pay cut every year. Brock Purdy, I mean, Brock Purdy's going to get his money. It's not going to be $55 million a year, but it'll be at least 35. I was expecting more than Kirk. I don't think he's going to get Kirk Cousins' money. Where the hell does Kirk Cousins rank in this right now? I'm not seeing him on this. Spotrac getting lazy and not updating their contracts. I don't even think they updated the Kirk contract in here yet. Yeah, because I'm not seeing him here. I might have to go over the cap to see what Kirk's making. I think Kirk's making like 45. Let me see Kirk Cousins' contract. Kirk Cousins' contract is annual average salary is 35. Yeah. No, I lied. That was his Vikings contract. They just haven't updated it yet in this. Those lazy little. He made his last contract with the Vikings is 35. I think it went up to 40 though for him, like 40 or 45. It was something crazy. And his wife was rich. That's very true. So we're gonna see how this thing works out in terms of what Pittsburgh does, both at receiver, what they add at cornerback, and I'm looking forward to seeing this how the quarterback battle goes. And again, if you missed the early portion of the show, just some numbers that I wanted to point out for both Russ and Fields, just so you can get a little bit of a feel for it. Russell Wilson last year, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, 18th in the NFL in EPA per play for quarterbacks, but 4th in the NFL in yards on passes with at least 25 air yards. So when he was allowed to chuck it and extend plays, I mean, he showed that he could still do that. 3rd in the NFL in completion percentage over expected. So there's still something there with Russell Wilson, even if it's not the elite quarterback Russell Wilson that we saw before in Seattle. Justin Fields, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year, 45 total touchdowns over the last 2 years, 1,800 rushing yards over the last 2 years. And again, I think that both guys will have certain advantages in this offense where when the Steelers are in second and short situations or just in play action situations to begin with, that's going to be Russell Wilson's bread and butter. We're going to see a lot of those crossers from Roman Wilson in the slot. We're going to see some downfield shots to George Pickens. And then for Justin Fields, a dual threat quarterback fits hand in glove into an Arthur Smith offense. It's what he really tried that with Marcus Mariota. It's just Marcus Mariota is not good. Now you get a guy like Justin Fields, who is a much better version of Marcus Mariota. And if he ends up getting, some sort of package in this offense, even when he's not the starter, I think that he can do a lot of great things. So I'm excited for both of them in the offense. There's so many things that you can do in terms of, for both guys. I think more so for Fields because he's more of, the dynamic athlete. You can do a lot of things with, read options and RPOs and stuff of that nature. But I'm excited to see what they do. Very excited. Rest of the system will be exactly what we need as long as the O-line works out. That's the big thing, too, is that the offensive line is going to be much better. And it's going to be similar to, the days in Seattle for him where, it was more of a, didn't need him to be Superman per se. He was still a really good quarterback, but, they had a nice run game. So we'll see. Stream this weekend, please. We'll see. I don't think I'm going to tomorrow. I think I'm going to just chill tomorrow. If I get bored, then maybe I'll do something. But I think I'm just going to hit the bars in Pittsburgh tomorrow. Maybe watch a movie. But yeah, I'm definitely going to take tomorrow away from streaming just to chill for a little bit. And get a true receiver one. Yeah, again, I think they're going to. If I had to pick which one I think it's going to be as of right now, I think DK Metcalf is the most likely option. It'd be, like I said, it'd be very fun if it ends up being Devontae Adams. I'd be pretty hyped about that, but I don't think that's what it's going to be. I think that DK Metcalf is the most likely option here. That'd be a fun training camp. DK Metcalf, George Pickens, going up against these corners and that defense. So I'm excited regardless. I'm excited. Very excited. I feel like people forget that there are busts and we could have a bunch of busts. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, sure, there are guys that bust, but, they took a lot of dudes at safe. They took a lot of safe picks that are also good players. Like Fautanu is a very safe pick, but was expected to go earlier because he's a really good player. And when you take offensive line, like it's very rare that early drafted offensive linemen just stink. Like offensive line is usually the safest position to draft for that reason. If you're a stud at that spot in college, you're usually going to be pretty okay in the NFL, barring like injuries or anything that slow you down. Like Mekhi Becton, that's been his biggest problem is just he can't stay healthy. He's now with the Eagles. So I think that Fautanu, Frazier, those are going to be two great additions to the offense. Peyton Wilson's going to be a good addition to the defense. I think Roman Wilson will be solid at receiver. And again, I think that some people also think that, okay, if this guy's not a superstar, then he's a bust. That's also not true. If Zach Frazier becomes like the 12th best center in football, cool. Once you get past like the 5 best centers in football, they're all pretty interchangeable until you get to the ones that stink. If Zach Frazier's the 12th best center in football, I'm happy. If Fautanu's the 9th best tackle in football, either the right or left side, I'm happy. As long as these guys as long as they play well, that's all I care about. So, we'll see. No, I wanted Brian Thomas, but Fautanu's grown him. Yeah, Brian Thomas, I think he'll be, I wasn't huge on him. Happy that Trevor Lawrence at least got another weapon to throw to. Hopefully he ends up being good. I don't think he's going to be like a stud. I think he'll be fine. Do you think it would be easier to sign Justin Simmons if we signed DK for a lot less than Ayuk? I don't know. What is DK? Because DK got paid not that long ago. Let me see DK Metcalf's contract. Okay, DK Metcalf. Yeah, he got paid 3 years, $72 million a few years ago. His cap hit this year is his cap hit this year is $24.5 million. It's $10 million more dollars than Brandon Ayuk's cap hit is this year. So I don't think that would make it easier. If anything, it'll make it harder. Because DK's making a lot of money. Brandon Ayuk was still in the midst of his rookie deal or something of that nature. Yeah, it would have been his rookie deal. So he's only making about $14 million this year. DK Metcalf's making $10 million more dollars than he is. So if anything, that'll make it a little bit more difficult to bring in Justin Simmons. Kendrick Green was a horrible pick. Kendrick Green was also a 3rd-round pick. He wasn't, an early day 1 guy or like a high-end day 2 guy. He was an undersized guy that went much higher than he should have, for sure. And we passed on AD Mitchell. Well, I mean, you pointed out that guys are going to be bust. There's no guarantee that Brian Thomas or AD Mitchell are going to be good. I think that they can both be fine. I don't think either of them are going to be stars, personally. I think that both of them can be good, but I don't think they're going to be in the echelon of being like superstar receivers. But we'll see. We'll see. Mostly, like I said, I wanted to get to the quarterback stuff. I think we did a pretty good job of that. Kicking off the show with that, coming back to it. Still trying to figure out, a good format for this. But I'm liking doing this. Like I said, we're going to do it every weekday throughout the rest of the off season. We'll figure out a schedule when the regular season comes. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do it. Tell your friends about all of it. If you want to become a Pump Fake Plus member where you get extra content and when we get players on, my friends from NFL Media to come on, you can submit questions to have asked to them. That's the 2 biggest perks really that you get from the Pump Fake Plus. And then once we have enough members, we'll do member-only shows. But again, I'm not expecting that to become some like big thing overnight. I understand that'll take time to grow up. So Not too worried about it. But again, if I woke up tomorrow, we had 20 members. Hey, that's pretty cool. That's probably the number that I would be like, okay, we'll do member only shows at that point if we get to 20. But again, I just set it up a few days ago, so not expecting it to take off overnight. But these quarterbacks, man, I think that the biggest thing that I come back to with the quarterbacks is that they don't need to be world beaters. They don't need to become all of a sudden Joe Burrow or Allen or Mahomes. They don't need to be superstars. They just need to be competent. I think that if they end up being someone like a Jared Goff, that's pretty great for the Steelers. They just need competent quarterback play. They haven't had competent quarterback play. And they're also finally getting competent play calling. I think that the Arthur Smith offense is going to help both of them, whichever one is the starter. I hope to see a Justin Fields package, even if he's not the starter, because I think it just makes too much sense to not have him on the field at some point. But both of them have potential to really work in this offense. So I'm excited to see what they do. I've said it a few times. Just get me to camp. Less than 3 months away from camp. So that's all I got my eyes set on right now. And once we do get there, I'm going to be doing daily write-ups from camp when I'm there. I'll do daily streams as well from camp. Not from camp. Like, I'll come home and then, tell you what I saw. Camp will be awesome with all the changes to the team. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It'll definitely be fun. And Latrobe's always incredibly fun, being at St. Vincent. They have the Friday Night Lights practice every year where they go to the high school in Latrobe and practice there. It's pretty cool to be a part of. So it's a rad time, man. So I do, like I said, I'm going to be doing daily write-ups at Behind the Steel Curtain of my biggest takeaways. I'll do a stream every day after camp as well. So again, if that's something that sounds up your alley, subscribe to the channel. And like I said, we'll be here every weekday, 7:30, to talk about different topics. Like I said, I wanted to get, just throw a few numbers out there on the quarterbacks today to get us through the stream today. Talk a little bit about the cornerbacks. So I think that was a mission accomplished with a minor, minute and a half, probably not even that long. It's probably like a 45-second glitch where it kicked me and I had to come back in really quick. Do you think the asking price for Brandon Ayuk is higher than the asking price for DK Metcalf? Yes, I would say so, because Brandon Ayuk's better than DK Metcalf. And again, Seattle's in a spot where they're not quite contenders, so I think they'd be more willing to, get some draft picks in return and start kind of this new era under Mike Macdonald. And eventually they're going to need to find a new quarterback. And Geno Smith's not going to be the big, long-term answer there. I think we've kind of seen that peak. So I think that they're kind of in a weird spot where they're not quite contenders, but they're not awful either. They're in that unfortunate spot of being mediocre. So I think that they're going to be willing to part ways with some guys to get some draft picks and build for the future with new head coach Mike Macdonald. What do you think about the undrafted free agents? Any gems? Yeah, I think Beanie Bishop is going to be a guy who could potentially start out of West Virginia at nickel. John Reese Plumlee, the quarterback out of UCF. I don't know if he's going to beat out Kyle Allen for the third quarterback spot on the roster, but with his skill set and this offense, I could see it happening. Worst case scenario, he'll be fun to watch in preseason because he said that the Steelers are committed to just keeping him at quarterback and not changing his position. So I could see that being a situation where the Steelers are like, all right, you know what? With this offense, it makes more sense for us to have him than Kyle Allen. But we'll see. But worst case scenario, he's just a guy who's very fun to watch in the preseason. Ends up being on the practice squad. That's fine. Dajon Edwards, the running back out of Georgia. He had 13 touchdown rushes last year. Keep a closer eye on him now, just because Najee Harris's fifth-year option wasn't picked up. So pay attention to that. That's a guy, if he performs well in the preseason, if he gets a roster spot and Harris walks in the offseason, hey, he might be running back 2 next year. So Dajon Edwards out of Georgia, Beanie Bishop out of West Virginia are both like 2 guys that could be fun. I think that Bishop is a guy that you really need to pay attention to. John Reese Plumlee maybe could be QB3 just because of the offense that the Steelers run. So we're going to see. If they start Beanie Bishop but not start Fautanu at tackle over Dan Moore, I'm going to lose it. Yeah, that's fair. I'd be pretty annoyed too. I'd like to say that I don't think that's going to happen, but I said the same thing last year about Broderick Jones, and we know how that went. I'm very much over Dan Moore. I'm very over the Dan Moore stuff. He's not good. In a perfect world, I would just like to see them trade Dan Moore and call up somebody like Spencer Anderson, who they're pretty high on. They were high on him last year. I thought he might get a roster spot throughout the entire season last year. I don't think he did. I think he was on the practice squad for the majority of last year. So I would just like to see them move Dan Moore somewhere. Keep Spencer Anderson as your backup because I'm tired of the Dan Moore stuff. Him, a second, and a fourth for DK. I don't think that the Seahawks don't really need tackles right now. I don't think that Dan Moore is going to be involved in a DK Metcalf trade. I think that a DK Metcalf trade will be purely for picks. Dan Moore will be traded for, a day 3 pick, maybe like 2026, honestly. What's Juju's contract like with New England? Would you be open to bringing him back on a decent deal? He's a good run blocker too. I don't want Juju Smith-Schuster back either. I'm good on that. There's just no explosiveness there. I can look at his contract. I think he's making $11 million a year. I think that's his deal with the Patriots. 3-year, $25.5 million. Annual average salary is about 8.5. Let me see what his cap hit is this year. So his cap hit this year, it's about $10 million this year. Yeah, I'm not a big Juju guy, personally. He annoyed me more than anything, so I was very, very okay with seeing him leave. So I don't even want to acknowledge a Juju Smith-Schuster trade. Yeah, $9 million too much. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Juju. Not a fan of Juju. And again, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Again, we'll do Black and Gold breakdown every Monday through Friday, 7:30. Where Max giving up a 3rd-round pick for DK. Yeah, maybe. I think that they'll give up multiple picks for him. I think a 3rd and a 6th might be able to get it done. A 3rd, both 7s that you got from Philadelphia, and a 5th in 2026, something like that. But they're not going to give up a 1st or a 2nd for him. So we shall see. But we'll get ready to wrap this up here in the next few minutes. And then, like I said, we'll probably won't do this tomorrow. Like I said, we're going to try to do this Monday through Friday. So I'll take the weekend. We'll see what happens over the weekend, though. Hopefully something fun happens. That would be cool. Now, if a trade does happen over the weekend, then obviously I'll hop on with a, emergency stream and we'll talk about it. Or something crazy happens, similar to that. But right now, we'll tentatively plan. Like I said, unless something crazy happens, we'll be back on Monday at 7:30 to talk more things Steelers. What will it be? I don't know yet. I'll figure that out over the weekend to see what we can talk about. Maybe target distribution. I think that could be a good one. We'll look at target distribution possibilities with the current group. And then I can work in some stuff for, if DK gets traded there or if Cortland Sutton gets traded to Pittsburgh, something of that nature. But something with receivers and target distribution, I think that could be something that we do on Monday, and try to figure out what these numbers could look like in 2025 for the receivers. I think that would be fun. So what that would look like is looking at the Falcons offense over the past few years, because obviously that's where Arthur Smith was, and that can kind of give us a clue on how much passes will be per game, give or take. We'll look at some receiving numbers as well. So we'll see what potential target distribution, potential stats, potential touchdowns, all that type of stuff could look like with the Steelers. So basically just projecting, hey, what could George Pickens' stat line look like? What would Pat Freiermuth's stat line look like? I think that could be a fun video to do. So we'll do that. We'll do that Monday. If we sign DK and Justin Simmons this offseason, it would be absolutely amazing, and confidence going into this year. Yeah, I mean, it would be fun. That's a lot of money. But I'm not ruling out either of them. I think that Justin Simmons is still a possibility. I think that Terrell Edmonds is a possibility as well. We kind of talked about that already yesterday. But we'll wrap it up there. Again, Monday, 7:30. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, please do so. Tell your other Steelers friends about it to subscribe to the channel. Tell them how awesome this is. So just kind of tune in. And again, it's May. We all want football. I think that this is a pretty good little sanctuary as Steelers fans where we can talk ball for, an hour and a half or so. I'm going to take a minute to plug the other stuff that I do. The Punt Fake podcast, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. I stream every episode on the channel as well. The most recent episode I did with my friend JP Acosta from SB Nation, where we just talked about the draft, our favorite picks, our least favorite picks, things of that nature. So go and listen to that. I'll be recording an episode of that next week as well. Who with? Not sure yet, but it might be a 2-episode week next week, because if we have the schedule release, I'm going to do an episode with that as well. And then read the top 36 quarterbacks in the NFL and USA Today. Read all the work at Behind the Steel Curtain, where the staff that I have over there has done tremendous work. Again, all the Steelers content at Behind the Steel Curtain. Steelers coverage for SB Nation. So check out all the work. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. Like, subscribe, tell your friends to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. See you Monday, where we talk receivers and target distribution. So that'll be the video Monday. So I will see you guys then.